Hi there. Welcome back to another video on my channel. Today I'm here in my robe and I also have, hang on, some tea, some mint tea. Cheers. If you haven't guessed, it's cold. I'm freezing my butt off. Today's the first day of December. Hello, winter. Technically, we're still in fall because I think the first day of winter doesn't start till like December 21st. But it's winter to me, damn it. There's snow everywhere. We had I guess, a snowstorm in Chicago and back in my hometown because I was visiting relatives for Thanksgiving. And instead of leaving on the weekend like originally planned, we got snowed in for an extra little bit, and we just got home this morning. Like, we were on a train bright and early at like 7 in the morning, and we finally came back to Chicago. So, with all that contextual information, I'm sure you guys realize that I am pretty freaking tired, and you would be correct. I am pretty freaking tired. I had a different video planned for today, one that did more of a queer analysis on Wicked, since I saw the new Wicked movie last week. And I'm sorry that sounds so exciting to you. It is exciting to me, especially since I go on a rant about queer subtext and how straight people cannot see the queerness of Alphaba and Galinda. But that's a whole other video. I just want to take it easy since we've been traveling this morning, and I just wanted to do a reading wrap up for the season of fall. So if you're interested in that, just keep on watching. I should warn y'all that my fall reading has been a little sparse. This fall has been so crazy. Like, I was busy every single week in October and for a couple weekends in November. Basically, we were either traveling for work or, I went to a wedding at one point in time. And we were doing different book events in October throughout the Midwest. I should have known better as a horror author myself that most people would be interested in horror books or horror authors around October for spooky season. I did not plan accordingly, and this is what happened. So, because of that excellent problem that I have where I was busy working every weekend, I didn't have a lot of time to read for myself, to read leisurely. But I did read 3 books, and I'm just going to fan these out for you now. Bam. So I read these 3 books, all in the spooky realm, and the overall theme for this reading for fall was, I think, overhyped in my head. So I don't want to sound like a hater because I actually enjoyed reading all of these books, but there's definitely things that, like, I think that just didn't meet my expectations, and this is my fault. I tend to do this to myself. So I'm just going to go through each one with you right now, and yeah, we'll talk about books. Okay, the first book on my list is Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle. I think this recently came out. Hang on. Yeah, this came out this year in 2025. This is my first Chuck Tingle read. I've talked about this on this channel before, I think, or if I haven't, maybe I talked about it on my Instagram, but I have been meaning to get my hands on some Chuck Tingle literature. If you don't know anything about this man, be prepared. You are about to go down one big old rabbit hole, and I just I'm fascinated with his author lore, I'm not gonna lie. He previously self-published a bunch of very bizarre erotic fiction with like the most insane concepts. Sentient objects coming to life, queerness throughout. There's dinosaurs involved. Sometimes there's like existential, like literally a manifestation of existential dread. There's like black holes. There's like all sorts of stuff. He has also written a lot of satire. So there's one erotic satire he has that's supposed to be poking fun at J.K. Rowling, where it's like Harriet Trotter, I think, and the trans wizard, because J.K. Rowling donates to a lot of anti-trans legislations, so he's like trolled her a bit with that. That's so funny. So this is like his own universe, but he has made the transition from satirical erotica, I guess, to horror novels, which I'm just, as somebody else who writes like satirical horror, I'm like, oh my god, like what? So this is his newest book. He also has Bury Your Gaze and Camp Damascus. I really wanted to get my hand on a copy of Camp Damascus, but at the store I saw it at, it was kind of like bent and shit, and I just didn't want to pick up a copy at that time. But I tried Lucky Day. Lucky Day is, well, maybe I should just like read you a blurb about it because it's a little bit hard to describe. This is, if you know me, this premise is very much me. I love bizarre reads, and this is definitely bizarre. So let me just read you the blurb. Okay. 4 years ago, an unthinkable disaster occurred. In what is later known as the low probability event, 8 million people were killed in a single day, all of them dying in improbable, bizarre ways. Strangled by balloon ropes, torn apart by exploding manhole covers, attacked by a chimpanzee wielding a typewriter. A day of freak accidents that proved anything is possible no matter the odds. Luck is real now, and it's not always good. Vera, a former statistics and probability professor, lost everything that day, and she still struggles to make sense of the unbelievable catastrophe. To her, the LPE proved that the god of order is dead and nothing matters anymore. When Special Agent Lane shows up on Vera's doorstep, she learns he's investigating a suspiciously and statistically impossibly lucky casino. He needs her help to prove that the casino's success is connected to the deaths of millions, and it's Vera's last chance to make sense of a world that doesn't. Because what's happening in Vegas isn't staying there, and she's the only thing that stands between the world and another deadly improbability. And I also just wanted to show this picture of Chuck Tingle in the back. Let me just read this to you, and then I'll show you the picture. Chuck Tingle is the USA Today's best-selling author of Camp Damascus, Bury Your Gaze, and Straight. His books have been finalists for the Bram Stoker and Caliba Golden Poppy Awards. He is a mysterious force of energy behind sunglasses and a pink mask. He is also an anonymous author of romance, horror, and fantasy. Tingle was born in Home of Truth, Utah, and lives in Los Angeles, California. Tingle writes to prove that love is real because love is the most important tool we have when resisting the endless cosmic void. Not everything people say about Tingle is true, but the important parts are. So this is a picture of him. And this is how he shows up to like all of his events. He wears this bag on his head that says love is real. And at one point in time there was online rumors that he is actually Chris Pine. Which is just a funny rumor. I just love how involved he is on the internet and this kind of world that he builds not only in his own writing but around himself as an author. I think that's really interesting and creative and aspirational. So I really wanted to get my hands on this. Plus, I am someone who often wrestles with issues dealing with existential dread. I don't know if I've ever talked about this. My psychiatrist thinks it's a symptom of chronic PTSD, basically. But there are times in my life where or if I'm just like sitting down and thinking and something comes on and that causes me to start thinking about death, I kind of have a little panic moment where I feel like disconnected in my body almost. Kind of like, you know that scene in Doctor Strange where like the ball lady is like and she pushes him out of his body for a minute and then he gets sucked back in? That's exactly what it feels like is going on in my body. And in those moments I freak out and I panic and I kind of like feel a little depersonalized where I don't feel related to my body or myself and like the reality that I'm living in. I feel like a step outside of it and I'm kind of like, well, what's the point? But then I'm also scared of the idea of like not existing. So like for me, death, the scariest part of death is like the fact that there's like this endless void of nothingness. And I'm not necessarily an atheist or anything like that, but for some reason that's like such a big feeling for me that I'm still wrestling through. And I don't know what it means. It doesn't happen super often, but occasionally it does. And it's very stressful. So you would think that I would like a book like this where it tackles that directly. And it's funny because I have a project that I've been working on forever that I wanted to do exactly what this book does. Tackling like the idea of like, what's the point of living? Wow. But yeah, basically this book is like, well, what's the point of living if everything is random and things can be horrible and there's no rhyme or reason to things? The main character in this book is bisexual, I believe, and me too. She is really, really depressed. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. She's really, really depressed, and she kind of starts in a really bad place. Like her house is a wreck and stuff, and then the secret agent calls on her to help out with this case, and she starts doing it out of spite because she already had problems with this casino pre like catastrophic world event where she was like investigating them for manipulating and cheating their casinos, trying to increase it so people would win more, but at the same time she's like, how are you doing this? How are you actually making money off this makes no sense. So she was investigating them herself, and then this event happened, and when the secret agent basically told her that he was investigating their connection to this like giant, this low probability event, she's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go get them, which in my personal experience is how I've gotten out of a lot of situations. I had a really hard upbringing, and a lot of the reason I am where I am now has been out of spite. Spite can be a great motivating tool. Proving people wrong could be a great motivating tool. So I'm not above it, and I'm glad this book utilized it as first. And so this kind of acts like a horror mystery. Most of the horror that comes from this is more of like body horror and like the graphic deaths. I wouldn't say like, obviously it is supernatural because you're dealing with like luck and probability, but I wouldn't say it's a traditional horror story. And I appreciate it for that, because I think this book is very unique. It deals with issues of the absurd, and towards the end you really really confront the void head on, which again was something I wanted to do in my book, and I'm like, dang it. Because this book just handles what I wanted to handle in a way that's probably more simplistic and straightforward than what I would have done. But yeah, this is a very good book. I can't remember what I rated it on Goodreads, and I think I read through it pretty quickly. But I don't know. I like the ethos of this. I like the creativity in this, and I'm excited to read more from Chuck Tingle. I really had high expectations that he would be my favorite author, and although I really did like this book, I remember being somewhat disappointed, maybe at the pacing. I can't remember what it was. You guys can go back to my Goodreads reviews if you really want to, and see for yourself. But yeah, I don't know. It's a very unique premise. Again, I really want to read Camp Damascus. That's about like a gay conversion camp, and who knows, maybe I'll get into some of his erotica too. Who knows? I'll let you guys know. Okay, the second book I wanted to talk about today is something that's been on my list for a while. I was recommended this book like a year ago when I was at a writing conference, and I was taking a class with Paloma Ghosh. Yes, I think I made a video about her on this channel about how to write monsters. So basically, I was taking a class called How to Write Monsters with this person, and then I turned what I learned into a video. So if you're interested in a video like that, feel free to look at my channel. You might have to dig through a little bit, but it should be under writing advice too if you want to go that way. But I think that video might be a little bit older. I don't know. But basically, we were talking about unique monsters, and she brought up this book, Monstrilio by Gerardo Samano Cordova. This is what it looks like. I heard that this is kind of like a modern Frankenstein. And of course, with that buzzword, I was like, hell yeah, let's do it, because I really, really like Frankenstein. It's one of my favorite books. I'm planning on doing a reread of Frankenstein here soon, since I just watched, not just, but like the Guillermo del Toro's version of Frankenstein came out, the adaptation. I watched that. I love that movie. And eventually I told myself I wanted to reread Frankenstein, the original source material, and then make a video like comparing the two, and like why some people are being a little critical of this movie. Like, I really enjoyed it. I understand where the criticisms are coming from, but I wanted to reread the book to see if I still thought those criticisms are valid. So that book might take a while that video that I make might take a while to come out, because I still have to finish reading the book. And right now my reading time is very slow and very limited. But yeah, so I basically, circling back, I heard Monstrilio was like Frankenstein. I was really excited about that. So I'm just going to read you the back of this real quick. After her son dies, Magos carves out a small piece of his lung to save for herself. Acting on fierce maternal instinct and the dubious logic of an old folktale, she nurtures the lung until it gains sentience. Growing into the carnivorous little monstrillo she keeps hidden within the walls of her decaying childhood home in Mexico City. But despite her best efforts to turn the monster she created into a man, Monstrilio's innate impulses threaten to destroy his fragile second chance at life. A meditation on grief, acceptance, and the monstrous side of love and loyalty, Geraldo Samano Cordova's ambitious debut spans the globe from Brooklyn to Berlin, offering a cathartic and precise portrait of being human. So I enjoyed this book as well. I definitely would not characterize this as Frankenstein. I think the only thing that's comparable to a Frankenstein is the fact that, oh, someone created a creature, right? I feel like this leans a lot more folktale than science fiction, whereas Frankenstein is science fiction questioning I mean, again, mad scientist. The science is pretty loose about that, but it's more about like one man's control over death. I guess the same idea. Maybe I'm being hypocritical, but the mother is dealing with the death of her son. He's been sick all his life. They knew that the son would pass. And in her grief, like the back said, she takes a piece of his lungs because his lungs were failing. That was the part of him that was sickly, was his lung. She keeps the lung and she feeds it meat. She feeds the lung meat. The lung grows into its own thing that is inherently monstrous. It turns to this fuzzy, hairy little thing. And she keeps it around and almost it stands in as like a second son to her until they, and I'm going to use the word force it to take on human-like characteristics. The creature initially is hairy, has really sharp fangs, has an extra tail that acts like a hand kind of appendage that comes from the side of it. It's a little hard to visualize, but again, it's supposed to be otherworldly and like a little bit hard to wrestle with. I mean, look at the front; it looks kind of like a bat. The parts of this that I really enjoyed is this idea of parents molding you to be what they want you to be instead of acting in your true nature, which I think is a topic that a lot of people can relate to. So I like that it was written about in this book. I'm going to try not to give spoilers to things, but if yeah, I'll try my best. But basically, they like eventually cut off his tail, cutting off literally the parts of him that make him monstrous. He eventually loses some hair. I mean, he's still fuzzy. He's like hairier than a human should be. And his teeth are sharper than a human's teeth should be. But I think he like still wears certain things that disguise his innate monstrousness so he can blend in just enough. Obviously, in this book, I think that's also meant to be like a queer metaphor as well. I should say that there are queer characters in this book. His parents eventually split up, but his dad ends up partnering with another man. It's implied that I think the mom also has had female lovers, and there's a lesbian character in this too that acts like a close family friend who is like a stand-in parent for him at times for Monsterillo, and that's literally what they call him. Okay, like this is the name of the monster, but then eventually when he gets to the point where he's like a person, they start calling, some of the people call him the name of the son, which is kind of messed up. I should also mention that I do believe that the monster has some of the son's memories, but he's not really connected to them anyway. He just has them still, but he is his own soul. Like he is his own entity. He's his own being, someone that's being forced to be human. And it isn't until he really grows up and becomes a young man that he's also exploring his sexuality. He meets up with men. So this is a very LGBTQ book, by the way. Every character's gay. I should prophesy. Everybody gay in this book. It is great, or at least bi or fluid with their sexuality. So the monster grows up. He starts like linking up with men, right, and trying to court them, and he can't stop this irresistible urge to bite. You know, he explores this monstrous side of himself through sex and through kink and trying to find somebody that will let him bite them, but then it like escalates from there. And I think that's the part I'll leave for you. This book also had multiple POVs. I think that's the part where I could have done without. My favorite parts were coming from the perspectives of the creature. Although the writing for the creature is like very simplistic. Like I'm trying to remember, but I think it's basically just like small sentences. I don't know. I like stylized dialogue, I think, and I think that's why I appreciated Monstrilio's perspective the most. He was the most interesting to me. There was a lot of POVs. I think we could have probably done without. I think it was just another issue of pacing for me where I kind of got, a little like towards the middle and waiting for things to pick up. I also thought I just also couldn't connect with the mother very well. I remember thinking that she was kind of irresponsible and lofty compared to everybody else. From the get, like I get she was grieving, but even towards the end, she acted a lot out of selfishness for me. So it's just hard. I mean, not every character's gonna connect with you. It's fine, but yeah, those were my little hangups though. But I liked the overall messaging in this, and I guess it could be a Frankenstein because it's like, can we manipulate death? Is that the right thing to do? Obviously not in this case. Unlike Frankenstein though, Victor Frankenstein rejects his monster after creation, whereas the rejections this they reject not every character, right? But like to some degrees, the different characters reject him as who he is innately without rejecting him outright. It's not like they don't want him anything to do with him. They still want him to be a stand-in for their son, but they want it on their terms. And they don't want to admit that this is who this person really is, and they won't let him be himself essentially. And in their eyes, if he does that, then it's going to be harmful for other people, right? Because he's a monster. He, like, even in his monstrous phases, he would kill animals or bring animals back. He attacked like a family dog at one point in time. And like, he shows no reservation in the beginning about attacking other people. So in their heads, this is like a safety thing. But like, what quality of life is that for the creature? So similar to Frankenstein, I didn't think it felt as sci-fi-y. So if you are more of a sci-fi fan, you probably won't like this. If you're more of like a gothic folktale type fan, you might like this very, very much because it definitely felt like a modern interpretation of a folktale. So yeah, it was still really good though. But again, like there's things that I think could have been better about this, but overall it was a pleasant reading experience. So yes, I talked about my gay old scary books that I've been reading so far. I'm going to pivot. This one's a little bit different in terms of genre, but this is Forgotten Sisters. I finished this over while I was in the snowstorm. So I wanted to show this to you. I should mention that I got this for free. It was a gift from the author. I met her at one of my writing events. She was also vending books there. She was like the key author featured there, and I was like just one of the vendors. But it was nice for us to talk because we've talked before, and this is like her signature. See, I think I talked about this in my Slay the Lake vlog because I did a wrap up of all the stuff we got there, and I got Cynthia's book there. She gave it to me as a gift, so I just want to say thank you. It makes, I think, meeting the author in person and talking to the author really helps like the enjoyment of the book in general. But yeah, I definitely am appreciative for this copy, and I want to read more by Cynthia for sure because I think she has a unique form of storytelling, and I'm interested to see what patterns from this book carry over to her other works. I know she also likes to write thriller horror mixed with like fairy tales and almost like this Haunting of Hill House type vibes. Shirley Jackson, yeah, that's who I was thinking of. Shirley Jackson-esque type horror voice. So it's a different type of horror than I think some people are used to. So it's more like atmospheric and quiet and like quiet horror. I have a video on quiet horror on this channel too if you want to look it up. I did videos where I broke down different subgenres of horror. I should really do that again. But I have one on here for quiet horror, and I list Shirley Jackson specifically because her horror is not necessarily about like the blood and guts of it all, but the spooky atmospheric vibes. And this is how I felt for this one. So I'm going to read the back of the book for you so you get a gist of what this is about. One embraces the dread, the other is looking for escape. Sisters Anna and Jenny live in a historic bungalow on the Chicago River. They're tethered to a disquieting past, and with nowhere else to go, nothing can part them from their family home. Not the maddening creaks and disembodied voices that rattle the old walls. Not the inexplicable drownings in the area, or the increasing number of bodies that float by Anna's window. To stave off loneliness, Anna has a podcast spinning ghostly tales of Chicago's tragic history. But when Anna captured the attention of an ardent male listener, she awakens to the possibilities of a world outside. As the relationship grows, so do Jenny's fears. More and more people are going missing in the river, and then two detectives come calling. They're looking for a link between the mysteries of the river and what's housed on the bank. Even Anna and Jenny don't understand how dreadful it is, and still can be, when the truth about their unsettled lives begins to surface. One of the things I really, really, really enjoyed this book is how Chicago it felt. This book takes place in Ravenswood, which is funny because I live on the outskirts of Ravenswood. So this is literally in my backyard. And a lot of the things they kind of talked about like the type of house they live in, things like that, are things that I see in my neighborhood. Granted, I can't afford a bungalow right now on the Chicago River, but I have seen them. So this felt very, very close to home, quite literally for me. You know, Cynthia is born and raised here in Chicago, so she knows a lot about the city's history, and that's very, very apparent. There's so many like interesting Chicago facts and history in this book, and that was one of my favorite aspects, is that when she was writing about the different ghost stories of Chicago, or the histories of the city, and like the immigrants who lived here, and like with different neighborhoods, and even like certain tragedies that have happened in the city, I feel like that's really where this book shined. And that doesn't surprise me because Cynthia previously was a journalist. She wrote in that particular style before switching over to fiction. So when I read those parts, it feels the most realistic to me. But there's like other stuff in this that's interesting as well. Stories mostly told through Anna's point of view. Every now and then we have these cops come in and act as like a break almost in the story. I didn't mind that. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that's what brought in like the thriller elements for me. I saw some reviews online that said that people would have preferred more interjections from the police officers themselves and just see like their dynamic between the two. I don't disagree with that. I think that could have been nice, but it's hard for me to make recommendations for books once they're already published. It's not like the author can go in and change it. Um, so I don't know how helpful this is, like feedback is. I definitely understand why they would say that. This book, I have to warn you, is not for everybody. I tend to be a fan of this type of writing because I like unreliable narrators. I like when women especially start going crazy and talking to themselves in circles. And that is the majority of this book, is that this girl is talking to herself in circles. And sometimes it's about the house. There's like a haunted house going on. The house itself is scary. It's like making noises. It's acting as a cage. There's her, she's talking about that. Other times she's talking with her sister or talking about her sister and her sister's declining mental state. Her sister tends to speak in these like prophetic sort of ways that aren't necessarily always helpful, but she just comes in, drops some truth bombs, and leaves. But it's always written in a very introspective way, very philosophical. So the main character is her caretaker essentially, and is like struggling with that role. There's also references to like the history of the house, how many generations of their family has lived in the house, relatives that have passed on recently. These girls just lost their parents in a car wreck. Their grandmother also passed away, and she was kind of like the previous caretaker of the home. There's also like fairy tales wrapped into this, so this is very much like referencing almost to the point of excessively referencing the Little Mermaid. And which again I appreciate, because there's other factual information about like the origins of the story of the Little Mermaid, different cultural interpretations of mermaids that I all really enjoyed reading about. And maybe this is just the fun fact nerd in me, but I enjoy that kind of content. I like when a book can teach me things, and it did teach me some factual things in addition to like emotional empathy, right? Because like fiction is really good with emotional empathy. But so yeah, I loved all that. There was a ton of research that went into this book, and you can really, really tell. But again, if you don't like that style of narrator where someone's talking to themselves almost in circles, then you will not like this. This feels similar to Mona Awad's Bunny for me, and that's one of my favorite books. So I don't mind that kind of voice. I will let a girl ramble on, girl. Just yap to me. That's fine. I don't mind if you yap in circles, because I often do that too. I talk myself in circles sometimes before I can find my point. So we are the same. I had a I don't think I marked this for read on Goodreads, but I don't think I reviewed it yet. But one of the things I wanted to say about this book is that as a Cancerian, as somebody who has, oh, my bookmark's popping out. Hang on. As a Cancerian, as somebody who has, my son's in Cancer, this is the most Cancer book you will ever read. Oh my God. The melodrama, the mermaids, the home renovations, the fixing of the home, interdependent or dependent relationships to family members, the guilt of wanting to live your own life instead of taking care of somebody else. All of it just is very Cancerian. So if you believe in zodiac stuff and you're also a Cancer, or if you have prominent Cancer placements, this is the most Cancer book I've ever read in my life. So I would I would recommend this to you if I found out that you had cancer replacements, truthfully. I don't want to get into spoilers about like how this book ends or anything because it is kind of plot twisty-ish. It might surprise you, it might not. There's a couple of stressors in the book. One of the overall problems is that men keep dying and they keep washing up in the river, and they're trying to solve the murders. This concerns our main character as well. She's nervous about men dying in the river because her sister likes to go out every night, and she's worried about her sister's safety because so many people are getting hurt. And then the sister's very like, they're just men that are dying, not me. I'll be fine, girl. What are you talking about? So in addition to like the family drama and the haunted house and, you know, the family grief happening, there's also murders happening as well. Like I said, I did enjoy this book. I read it while it was snowed in, and I appreciate the writing style and I appreciate the mechanics of this book, but I just feel like this could be very polarizing to some. So that's why I just wanted to like let you guys know and warn you about that ahead of time. I'm really interested to see when I read Cynthia Palaio's other books to see what patterns emerge, if this is like her typical voice when she writes, or if she has other, or if it's just specific for this character, right? Because it seems like she's in a very dreamlike state almost. Like this entire book felt like she was talking in a dream. And that is a very specific stylized type of voice that I tend to like. I don't know if that's a continuous theme throughout her books or if it was just specific for this one. But I will let you guys know if I pick up another one of these Cynthia Palaio's books, and we can do a compare and contrast for the books. So yes, those are all the books I read this fall. Again, I apologize that it wasn't very many, that it wasn't a lot, but you know, I do think there were some quality books. It was a very interesting fall for sure. And like I said, it was only because I didn't have any free weekends for myself. I was traveling, moving around every weekend for the past 6 weeks. So I couldn't have a lot of time to really sit down and take time for myself and read. I will share with you though the book I'm currently reading, and I'm hoping to read more in December. I'm behind my Goodreads count. I told myself I'd read 30 books this year, and I'm like 4 behind. So I'm kind of nervous about meeting my goals, but I will let you know what book I'm currently reading and maybe some of the ones that I plan on reading coming winter. Right now, I am reading The Deadweight by Jo Salazar. Jo and I met at an event, and I got one of her books because it looked cool. It's like a zombie apocalypse type thing. She told me it felt like Yellow Jackets, and I love that show. So I was like, okay, sold. Very easily influenced, as you can see. I am on page 161 out of 320. So I'm like halfway there, or maybe exactly halfway there in this book. But I can read you the back of the book so that you guys know what this is about. After failing out of multiple foster homes and narrowly escaping juvenile detention, 16-year-old Quinn is undergoing therapy and rehabilitation at a residential treatment center. When Quinn and her best friend Keisha sneak onto the roof at the treatment center to look at the stars, they have no idea they'll be getting a front row seat to the start of the zombie apocalypse. As zombies, or carriers as the news calls them, infiltrate the treatment center, escape becomes essential. Quinn and Keisha make a pact to leave together, but several unexpected tag-alongs complicate their plans. As the girls battle the carriers and wrestle with their doubts about each other, who will survive and who is just dead weight. Ooh! I think there's a sequel for this book too that just came out, or maybe came out this year. There's a teaser for it in the back of this book, so if I like it, I'll get the sequel. I'll let you guys know. But so far, I'm enjoying it. It's more straightforward and definitely more action oriented than some of the other books I've read recently, which I don't mind. That's a good shakeup. That's a good break. And it is definitely more on action horror, zombie apocalypse type thing. I like the main character. She struggles with emotions like empathy. So I assume she's more of a sociopath, although I don't think we get like a formal diagnosis, but she just has to mimic certain emotions that other people naturally feel. But I'm halfway through and I've been really enjoying it. I also have a couple shorter books that I've picked up that I'm hoping to get through so I can push my Goodreads count a little bit and and be like, yay. I'll keep you posted for that. That will be my winter reads for sure. And I think I'll post my winter reads probably more so in February because like that's the end of winter. But I just wanted to get a jump on this. I know technically the next books I finish should count as fall, but like I said, there is so much snow on the ground right now. You cannot tell me it is fall. There is not a singular red, brown, green, yellow, orange leaf on the ground right now. It is all white. So in my head, it is wintertime and it's freezing. And I don't know about you, but I'm not the biggest fan of snow. I'm not the biggest fan of winter. I've grown up in northern Indiana or here in the Great Lakes my whole life. This is where I was born and raised. I lived on the East Coast and I lived in Brazil for a bit, but like being around the Great Lakes, it snows all the time, and I'm I complain about it every year like I don't know, but I do know, and that is why I complain. So yeah, if I seem grouchy over the next couple of weeks, that's why. But I just want to say thank you so much for listening to me yap. If you like this video, feel free to like it. You can comment something down below. If you read a book and you have a differing opinion than me, let me know in the comments down below. You can share this video with a friend, or you can subscribe to the channel. Please, please, please. That would help me out a lot. You can also sign up for my memberships if you feel so inclined. That would help me out financially for this channel so I can keep making videos and writing and doing all the fun stuff for you guys. And yeah, until next time, thanks. Bye.